All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real with Nick. During these series, I try and limit talking with my hands or getting my voice excited. So thanks for joining me on this calm afternoon in November. So the topic today, does technique matter? Right? You know, we're in this age in the physical therapy world where, you know, we see a lot of this conversation around, you know, just load it, created exposure, progressive overload, you know, increasing capacity, you know, without much consideration of technique, right? Or, you know, biomechanics, right? Or levers, right? All things that, and both of those things, again, have shaped how I practice and how I operate, right? How I look at getting people back to where they need to be able to, you know, to be able to handle the stressors in their life that are important to them, right? So foundationally, our relationship with stress is the most important thing that I think creates a framework for people like myself and other physical therapists and coaches to work off of, right? Stress drives adaptation, right? We need stress. Now, what's also important, I think, to understand is that technique, biomechanics, levers are going to be able to influence, right, where we're stressing, right, and what structures we want to stress. You know, often when we're looking at, let's say, knee pain, right, anterior knee pain, patellofemoral pain syndrome, right, or something like that. Anterior knee pain with step-ups, with squatting, with lunges, again, and we're ruling out any, you know, serious, you know, anatomics. Structurally, you know, we're stable. You know, a quick way to look at this, right, is, can I continue to squat? Can I continue to move in a different way, different technique, and not have knee pain? Right? It's a really easy way to kind of think about it. Now, changing my technique does not mean changing technique and not having pain after that change technique does not mean one of those techniques is either the right or wrong way. What it means is the way that I was squatting led to a certain amount of stress at that tissue, which exceeded its capacity potentially, or created some kind of irritation, which led to a pain experience. By changing and shifting technique, I shifted stress on that tissue or on that body part, which did not create a pain experience. When I look at that scenario, I want to think about, okay, how can I, you know, put that area or that amount of stress in isolation to that body part, and something like a unilateral movement, like a step up, a step down, a lunge pattern, high time under tension. How can I actually improve the tissue tolerance there and capacity and strength so that when I go back into a squat pattern, I can squat however I want to squat without having that tissue's capacity being breached or irritated. So there are a few ways to do that, right? And there are a few concepts to think about. So does technique matter there? Well, you know, in that moment, shifting my technique can allow me to continue to train. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's all I care about. Can my clients continue to move? Can they continue to train, right? Concurrently, we can also work on building tissue tolerance and building capacity so that when they go back to squatting, they can squat however they want to be able to squat, right? So again, you can kind of approach this from two ways. I'm trying to stay calm here, trying to limit the hands, right? We can build capacity in a vacuum, where we improve our progressive overload with unilateral type work. We can also make modifications and changes to our technique right now, all right? Now, when we have very specific goals or very specific adaptations that we want to make in certain body parts, technique matters, right? If I want to stress a certain area, yes, technique matters. Altering the lever arms and biomechanics of a movement of the trunk position, okay, of the hip, of the knee, of the ankle, of an external load, right, of my environment, I'm able to target certain areas. I'm more worried about in a training program what you're not doing, right? So we know, again, if I'm addressing knee pain, if I'm addressing the knee and I'm only working on very precise technical things and trying to be very perfect with my movement, I'm probably not going to drive the adaptation that I want to drive. And I'm not going to have enough time because I'm being too specific. But there are times where we want to be specific, maybe on one or two things, on one or two movements. And then we know by addressing the entire kinetic chain, the foot, the ankle, the calf, right, the quad, the hamstrings, the glutes, the adductors, all of it, even the core, trunk position, we're going to make favorable change in someone dealing with some kind of pain or injury. So again, there are times where we can be specific, where technique matters. There are times where we can be a little bit more global and throw a broad blanket out there. So again, technique matters, yeah, absolutely, but it's about context, right? When does it matter, right? What are my cues? What are my goals? What are the adaptations I'm going for? And again, you get to use your knowledge of exercise, prescription, biomechanics, and levers to set someone up for success, to stress what you want to stress, and to leave, unstressed what you want to leave unstressed. And that's where maybe modifications in the moment can be helpful, right? When we're experiencing pain in a squat, guess what? I don't want to experience pain in a squat. When I'm squatting, what am I going to do? I'm going to move my foot a little bit. I'm going to maybe have a little bit, more torso angle to take stress off my knee, right? I'm going to think about my foot position, all of those things. I'm going to do them because I'm not really want to feel pain when I squat. So again, that's not a good or bad technique. It's not a right or wrong technique. It's a different technique, right? We can continue to figure out why we're experiencing those things at a later date. Also taking into consideration that, on a day-to-day basis, symptoms are going to change based off of a lot of factors: sleep, diet, stress, nutrition, how you're feeling that day, your readiness, everything. Technique matters sometimes it doesn't. Thanks for keeping it real.